the calls.
You'll eventually get the 20% back. That Silver Connect card is going to pay her co-payments. Remicade, I believe, is an injectable, and her hospitalization co-payments. And tell them to turn his Part B on. This show is called Medicare and You. This is Michael Regan, your host, and hopefully that is my friend and colleague, Nora Duncan, who is the state director for the AARP of Connecticut on Line 3. Nora, how are you?
I'm great, Michael. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Nice to hear your voice.
You too.
When you and I were speaking, we were talking about fraud and the senior.
Yeah, so scams, frauds, anything that we think of, whether it be online, in person, over the phone, or via the mail, huge problem. AARP thought it was such a problem across the country that we started something called the Fraud Watch Network. And that's Fraud Watch Network. Just type it into Google. It's really aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network, but a Google search will get you there. And what we have done is create a multidisciplinary approach to helping people become alerted to frauds that are happening and scams, a lot of it really being consumer scams. And we've also we've got an online presence, a mail presence, a phone presence, and an in-person presence. So the Fraud Watch Network is a place where you can go and register, whether you're an AARP member or not, and regardless of your age, to get what we call watchdog alerts. The watchdog alerts will come, and they'll tell you what's going on in your area regarding frauds and scams and across the country. You can also feed information up into it. So if you know there's a scam going on in your neighborhood, a lot of times when I think of local scams, I think of the folks who walk around neighborhoods and pretend they're from the utility company, for instance, and knock on doors and try to get into people's homes when they're not from the utility company. You can log that in and put it in and say, this is happening right here in my town. You can also call the police, by the way, and the utility company. But this is an interactive thing. In Connecticut, actually, he's right here in my office right now, we have a team of volunteers and staff. My head volunteer is here right now that lead Fraud Watch presentations to groups that ask for it, and we've got a partnership with amazing organizations formally, such as the Attorney General, the Consumer Protections Department, Department on Banking, the Better Business Bureau. The list goes on and on, of all of our for-profit, nonprofit, and government partners that are all invested in helping people become aware, protect themselves, and flush out scammers who are trying to take your hard-earned dollars. It's hard enough to live on a fixed income. It's even harder when someone's always out to get you. And we want to make sure people know what's going on.
It's actually so prevalent. It happened in Wolcott. Two guys show up in some kind of gas. It was in the paper a couple weeks back. Luckily, the husband was home. So the husband comes down, he's like, honey, and they ran out of the house. But this is no joke. This is happening to you out there, the senior. They are preying on you. They read the obituaries. It is a full-blown racket. It's a career for these people.
Oh, it is. So, I always look at it this way. They're spending every day trying to figure out how to rip you off.
Right.
So, you have other things to do besides think about ways to defend yourself. So we try to provide a tool and a resource that's free and that can help you so that you don't have to spend all day thinking about it. The more alert and aware we all are and the more connected we all are to each other and to our community, the less likely it is that they're going to get us.
And we have a caller. She wants to talk. She's patiently waiting. You and I have a bunch of topics, so you said I have time for you, Nora.
Yeah, you've got time.
But this is something I want you to address. The reason I have the guru, Nora Duncan, and I know not Nora L. Duncan, Nora Duncan.
You can go either way. It's fine.
No big deal. But honestly, this woman is so intelligent. When she speaks, it's like, okay, she knows what she's talking about. Wait till you hear this story. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, you most likely have heard it before. But when I heard it, my colleague and I were like, this should be a topic. So people out there listening in the greater Waterbury area, I know now because I have Cheshire people calling me and say they listen. Prospect, Southbury, Naugatuck, Woodbury, Watertown. Listen to this story and really pay attention. It is sad, and it might be something you think, oh, that doesn't happen, but you know what? Let's put caller on line 1 through. Nora Duncan, this is a caller, no names for HIPAA reasons. If you want to give your first name, that's great, but explain your scenario to us, caller. Hello, caller on line 1. How can we help you?
Good afternoon, Michael and Nora. How are you?
Good.
Great, thanks.
Nice to hear your voice.
Great. Well, my story is a little bit different than I think what you were talking about, but it did include a potential scam on my parents. And I live here in the Connecticut area, but my parents, like many of our parents and seniors, have chosen to escape the frozen tundra and have second homes and are snowbirds in Florida. And after growing up here in New England and having their entire lives where they grew up, they married after being high school sweethearts, even went off to college, came back. My father was, his job took him away from home for months at a time, came back. And so my mother was quite used to dealing with things on her own. Unfortunately, in the winter of last year, my dad passed away unexpectedly. And my mother was one of these folks that, was very New England stoic about his death, and took it in great stride. But, you deal with death and people deal with death in a variety of different ways. And what I would say to their listeners out there, whether you are the senior or whether you are the child or grandchild or even nephew or niece of them, of a senior, especially one that has gone through a loss, is that we have an unwritten contract to take care of the seniors in our life, whether they are our parents, uncles, aunts, grandparents, whatever they may be.
Just our loved ones.
And they're a loved one. And we need to be very cognizant of predators out there looking to take advantage of them. And that's exactly what happened when my mother returned to Florida this year. They had under my father's watchful eye, they had a handyman that came in, as my father wasn't able to do some of the basic things with his diabetes and heart condition. And so they employed a handyman who was himself, eligible for AARP in his 50s, but, had you could just tell from meeting him, was one of these folks that had just never had a string of good luck in his life. And was very sweet, but started to get a little bit closer to my mother than I really was comfortable with. And in fact, when I was down seeing her for an event in October, all of her neighbors came over to me, and very, in their own way, 3 of her surrounding neighbors cautioned me about this gentleman, and I use that term loosely. And that they feared that he was getting very close to my mother and wanted me to be aware of it. Now, I listened to them and kind of poo-pooed them in a lot of respects, because my mother's a strong, independent person who took care of me and our family and dealt with, both having her husband around, but definitely having her husband overseas for months at a time while I was growing up. So she was not the target you would think. But having received another call after I returned home from one of the neighbors giving me information that was very distressful, my mother had actually started to date this man, and they have absolutely nothing in common. My mother is taught English. This man probably can't put 2 words together. I immediately got very, very concerned, not because my mother had chosen to move on with her life, but because I was concerned about the person she had chosen to move on with her life with. And rather than get into an argument with my mother over this, I decided to check out my feelings. And my course of action was not only to check in with our family attorney, and he agreed that my idea about having a background check run on this individual was paramount. And that background check that was $75 done by a local private investigator that I checked out them as well, making sure that they were licensed and insured and that they had all the proper certifications to do business in the county in Florida in which my mother lives, came back within 48 hours with a very complete background check. And not only did I do it on the background check on him, but on his brother as well, which I also knew had some run-ins with the law. This man had perpetrated a fraud by stealing another client's credit card and using it in 2014 and was currently serving on probation. He had multiple arrests for drug violations going back to 1993. He had actually broken parole and served in jail for 183 days in his past, and had also been convicted of soliciting a prostitute within the last 10 to 15 years. So it's something that happens, and it is our responsibility as friends, relatives, that if your elderly parents or relatives are making perhaps a bad decision, to help them understand that they need to be careful. And that means doing business with people that have all of the right licenses and insurance to be in their homes so that they actually don't get sued by someone falling, that they have all these items. This is something that I was shocked to find out, and then during the Christmas holidays, I had to sit down and explain this to my mother, breaking her heart, making her feel probably very foolish, and also then having to figure out how she was going to move forward with some of the things that this gentleman had done for her, that were just she needed to have some of the labor that he did done, and how was she going to go about finding someone else to trust and someone else to be there.
Not everyone has those resources. I mean, Nora, you know it.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people are alone and don't have someone to look out for them, although, I think a very good point about even keeping an eye on your neighbors to make sure that if there's someone next door who you think something suspicious might be going on, to keep an eye out. And, I'm very sympathetic to the story, and it's not really a new one, and that's the worst thing.
It's not. And
Googling aren't new. Yeah.
All right, talk to us.
Googling it was very clear that I was able to present my mother not only with his background, but with other cases that had happened in her area where these types of relationship scams had happened, and how they normally come from either a caretaker or a handyman or a landscaper or some sort of provider that moves in this process of gaining trust. And while some people don't have the resources to be able to resort to this, and a small forgery like what this gentleman committed on a woman prior, my mother has significant resources and a significant income as well as estate, and how scary it was that he, within 3 or 4 weeks, had already suggested going on vacations and trying to get her to buy land for him to develop in Florida as well. It's very scary how fast he moved. Yeah, and,
this is, again, when it's someone's career to do this, they have a lot of time and experience and expertise at it oftentimes. And so I think the points that you make about, this is not new. This has been going on for a long time. Something to reiterate, I think the shame and the embarrassment of it is often so much that folks won't come forward or don't want to report it to the police. And the fact is that the police are often very willing to help pursue these things. And we work with the Police Chiefs Association in just that light to try to make sure that these kinds of things are looked at as a criminal act, not a civil act. And they've been great partners to us. But the shame and the embarrassment, especially if there has been a financial loss, is really significant. And, I've heard folks give advice on it before that's pretty stellar, I think, which it sounds like your caller was good at, which is I think sometimes we want to say, how stupid can you be, and shake somebody by the shoulders and say, can't you see this is a scam? It's too good to be true. But they obviously couldn't see it. And so trying to prevent that shame and embarrassment factor can help shake out the actual criminal element there, right, or at least shake out the prevention before it gets too far. I think the new wave of this is really in the online dating world, the cyberspace world. There are huge scams going on, and the average resulting financial loss from them, according to some articles that AARP has published, can average $10,000 in financial loss related to these scams that are happening through online dating sites. And the thing that people don't recognize is that just like hackers work to take down, a credit card company's information, they work in groups. This is their job. They're sitting in groups in, wherever, Russia or here or anywhere else. These scammers are working in groups all day long, sending hundreds and hundreds of emails trying to get that bite.
If you are turning off the radio and you think this is not happening, turn it back on. One of the reasons I'm doing this at this particular time of the year is this is snowbird time. It's 8 degrees. The pipes in Cafe 1320 are frozen. The sink is filled with water. It's cold as can be here. Who doesn't want to go down to Florida? Oh, and then when you arrive to your condo, a little work needs to get done. That bathroom needs to get tiled. Carry on, ladies.
So it's Nora again. I want to, take the fact that this isn't new. There's a support group and a website that is actually formed, that AARP put out through our bulletin.
Nice and slow. It's a senior show.
Through our bulletin. There's a website called romancescams.org. This is not an AARP website, but it's actually a website started by a woman who fell for a romance scam and said, I'm not going to take this, and I'm not going to let anybody else take this either. And it really has been helping people recover from some of the financial losses, get support. There's a database of known scammers and a photo album. There's some quizzes about, maybe this does seem too good to be true. Let me check my level of understanding of what this situation is. Mm-hmm. There's really a lot on here. I'd like to just throw it out there as a resource for anyone who thinks they may be in this situation or suspects that they may have a family member or a loved one who's in this situation. There's new twists on scams. There's red flags to look for, and a lot of it's listed right there. And the other thing I just wanted to throw out is, again, that Fraud Watch network that AARP does sponsor. This kind of runs the gamut of frauds and scams that people will try to pull on you. The contractor may have his own scam that has nothing to do with romance at all. That's a common contractor scam issue, especially in times like when the pipes are bursting. When you're in an emergency circumstance, we've seen all sorts of things with weather-related damage and scams in Connecticut over the last few years. So fraudwatchnetwork.org, and then I have a toll-free number if someone's not interested in going online, that they can reach out to the Fraud Watch Network experts, which is 877-908-3360. This is all free, any age, regardless of AARP membership.
And the website was fraudwatchscam.org?
Fraudwatch Network.
Fraudwatchnetwork.org.
Yes, because we are a network of people all over the place, getting strong and fighting scams.
Okay, so
Nora, that's excellent information because it's not just the senior too. It's the family that sometimes is a little bit hesitant to question the decisions of their parents. And it's a tough decision to have to, as I did, pull a background check on someone that was working with my mother. And when the hair on the back of your neck goes up it's usually for a reason, and it also helps me to have the conversation with her that it wasn't just wasn't just my intuition that something was wrong. I did the research, and places like Fraud Network, Fraud Watch Network that you talked about, are great resources to pull information that support that there is these scams out there. And by the way, they're the seniors, if you've been caught by this, or you think you've been caught by this, it does not go to anything more than your trusting good nature. It has nothing to do with your intelligence. And I agree, again, as Michael said, you do want to shake sometimes people and say, how could you fall for this? But these folks have many times been working with the same individuals. They have historical relationships with families that have done work for them. In some cases, they've either went to school with their parents or their kids, or coached the kid, and then they've moved to another climate or moved someplace else, and they take a chance, and they don't do the same homework that they would have done about their child's preschool.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
So it's our turn as the stewards of our parents to make sure that they're making good decisions and help them to be educated in a very new world from when they were raising us. A lot of people have become helicopter parents, and there are reasons for the concern out there. Now we have to not only helicopter parent our children and the children in our lives, but we also have to do a little bit of this for our parents while enabling them at the same time to be as independent as possible. That was kind of my goal, is trying to figure out how I was going to make this revelation of my mother, and have her be ensured that she still had my trust to be independent and to carry on with her life the way she needed to. And how could I provide her the tools and the resources to do that?
And I just want to add to that too. Knowing that you're not alone in that you have been scammed. The Fraud Watch Network actually provides so many examples of people reporting that they have been scammed and what to watch out for. And I'm looking right now at the Connecticut site where individuals can upload their warnings about scammers. And it's empowering for people to say, hey, I just got this guy who was trying to get me, and now I'm going to tell you what his phone number is and what he's trying to say. A lot of it's about the scams that come in by phone or by email, but there's an opportunity to read alerts from local law enforcement and local consumer protections, as well as to upload your own, and to be empowered to say, I want to make sure this doesn't happen to other people.
Right. And
there was one other thing I wanted to point out, is that this gentleman went by as many people, in fact, other people in my family do the same thing. I have a nephew that goes by his middle name. I have a brother-in-law that goes by his middle name because but this gentleman went by his middle name, so that if my father, who was web savvy, had Googled him, he would have come up with nothing.
Yep.
In doing a little bit of research, I found out that his first name, once I put his first name, middle name, and last name into Google, the first thing that came up was his mugshot on jail.com. Don't just take the first pass. If you think something's wrong, dig a little bit further.
And ask for help.
And in terms of the your callers, anybody who's listening, you can give us a call at the office at AARP. We're happy to bring Fraud Watch Network presentations live to pre-existing groups. So if there's a church group, a civic organization, something like that would like to have one of these presentations, they're very powerful, they're very interactive. We can get that arranged with just a little coordination. So I'd love to give our toll-free phone number here at the Connecticut office.
Hit it.
So get your pencils. It's 866-295-7279.
I have that number as well.
Great.
I'm sure my buddies at the Waterbury Senior Center would love to have this.
Yeah, we go to groups all over the state. We can, nights, weekends, and, parent support groups. There's all sorts of things. And I just want to point out, these scams, this is not related just to seniors. They're out to get all of us. So it's great to stay aware, to make sure the whole family's informed, and to just, you fight back with knowledge. Knowledge is power.
Right. And
I actually told my girlfriend about this, who's not married, and she's quite a while along in her career, and she said, if I had done a background credit check on some of the guys that I've wasted 6 months with, for $75, that would have saved me time, money, and a lot of heartache.
And right when I got the call this morning from Michael, I was telling my communications director, and she said, I was just having a conversation with my 45-year-old single girlfriend who had a guy who she thought maybe was going down this scam road, and it took, 4 months to figure it out. But it was the same kind of thing.
That stinks.
Yeah, not everybody's a great person.
No, it's not. We're working so hard to do well, do right for ourselves, do the right civic things, be philanthropic. Sometimes you don't think, well, my tile guy really has a secret agenda and he wants to embezzle from me. Okay, so that's Nora Duncan. She is the State Director for AARP. Her email address is nduncan, DUNCAN, @aarp.org. The 800 number to reach her to set up a fraud alert seminar or whatever seminar you need them with is 1-866-295-7279. And from the bottom of my heart, honestly, Nora, you are such a pleasure to have gotten to know. On the task force that we did, you were really intelligent. You always brought your A game, and I was really honored to know you. For my caller who called in, thanks very much for your honesty. We know it hurts to talk about it, but we had to bring it to light to my listeners because, unfortunately, scams are real. God bless everyone. Thanks for listening, and I sincerely appreciate you both participating in this little debate here.
Thank you so much.
Right.
I appreciate the
Nora,
time.
consider you a repeat guest. I'll have you on within a couple months.
I can come on again. No problem.
Yeah,
Thanks so
great.
much.
And to you, caller, thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you to both of you for having this show. I think it's really important that seniors are aware of these things out there, as well as anyone. And reporting any of these incidents and going after the folks will absolutely help somebody else be prevented from the same type of pain that you're feeling right now. Right. There is no embarrassment in pursuing any type of fraud legally. That's how I found out that this man was actually after my mother, is someone else had the courage to file a complaint.
And your mother's lucky to have you because not everyone follows through, and it could have gotten worse. All right. So,
thanks again.
My pleasure. We're going to disconnect with those guests. We're going to go on to Medicare and You. Callers, if anyone's been affected by a situation like that, obviously call in 757-1320. If the lines don't light up, I have an agenda.